Welcome back to Hymn Workouts. We've got a fantastic workout today, and this is a workout that's going to get us to think about the love of God. Now, before we can step into this hymn, we've got to recognize that the way our culture, our society thinks about love, it doesn't prepare us to understand the love of God. We live and we talk in our culture about love in a way that cheapens the reality of love. For most people, they identify love as some kind of feeling. And the problem with that is feelings, they're so subject to change. It's like the weather. You wake up one day, the sun's shining. You wake up the next day, it's cloudy. You can't even see the sun. And if we're limiting love to emotion, we've got to realize there's no stable basis of love. In fact, if we're counting on love, if we're counting on the love of other people, and if all their love is feeling, that leaves us in a very vulnerable place. And so as we step into this hymn, we've got to recognize that we've been miseducated. Our world has not taught us how to think about love in a way that is truthful. And so we need this hymn. We need this hymn to remind us of what real love is, the love of God. And once we understand His love, it's going to give stability to us because we're going to realize this is something far greater than just a feeling or an emotion. And so let's go ahead. Let's step into this hymn. And let me just say this first stanza is an exercise in and of itself. If you just took this first stanza, and if you spent a day or a week meditating on this stanza, it would bear fruit in your life. So let me read it to you. Thy ceaseless, unexhausted love, unmerited and free, delights our evil to remove and help our misery. There are 4 words used about the love of God. Each one should be thought about deeply, because each one adds a distinctive light to the nature of God's love. The first one is that His love is ceaseless. And here just picture waves lapping over again and again. It just is ongoing, it's continual. It never ceases. The hymn says His love, it's unexhausted. Again, think of the ocean. You can take bucket after bucket and you're never going to worry about the ocean somehow running out of water. And every day you can draw afresh. Billions of people can draw afresh from God's love. The whole of the universe can be sustained by the love of God. And it's not at all depleted because it's unexhaustible or inexhaustible. It's unmerited. This is not something that God looks out and He only pours out His love upon those that are worthy of it. Nobody's worthy of it. But that's okay because He pours it out. He gives it to those that don't merit it. And it's free. It's not something you pay for. It's something that, again, it's a gift. And it's a gift that the giver rejoices in giving. And what's great about this stanza as well as it tells us, it uses this word delight, that God, He delights to remove our evil. It's not like anybody had to twist God's arm, cajole Him into doing something about the problem of sin and of evil that afflicts humanity. No, it's His delight to go and to remove that burden and to help us in our misery. I mean, anybody who has a picture of God as kind of the Father who can't be pleased, they need to think about the nature of His love and what this first stanza has to say. Now let me read the next stanza. Thou waitest to be gracious still. Thou dost with sinners bear, that saved we may Thy goodness feel, and all Thy grace declare. The picture here is that God, He's excited. He's so willing and ready to be gracious to us. And what He wants us to feel His goodness. And we often think that feeling, I talked about feeling a few minutes ago, that this is just a modern thing. But you've got to realize this is Charles Wesley. He lived in the 1700s, and his hymns again and again push us. He wants us to experience the love of God. And God, Wesley is saying here that he's so ready, He's so desiring that we feel His goodness and feel it and are so filled with His goodness that we want to go out and just declare His grace to the world. Now the next stanza says, Thy goodness and Thy truth to me, to every soul abound, a vast, unfathomable sea where all our thoughts are drowned. This stanza, the next one, and the following one, each use a different picture to help our mind think concretely about the love of God. In this stanza, we're reminded that the love of God is like the sea. It's so vast that the hymn writer says that all of our thoughts drown in it. That like when we try to swim And when we try to fathom just how deep God's love is, we just can't go deep enough, and we just lose our consciousness. We just, our imagination, it explodes as we explore just the depth of his love. Now the next stanza, it switches the image from the sea to a stream or to a river. It says, its stream, talking about the love of God, its stream the whole creation reach. So plenteous is the store, enough for all, enough for each, enough for evermore. You picture a vast land that's watered by some great river. I grew up near the Mississippi River, and you think of all of the territory, right? All of the land that in some way that river waters, that it gives life to. In this picture that God's love, it's a stream that goes forth to all of creation, and its store is so plenteous that it can satisfy every creature in creation. That's how much love there is. Again, the next stanza, it's going to go from, okay, we've talked about the love of God as the sea, now as a stream or as a river, and now we're going to picture it as a rock. Faithful, O Lord, thy mercies are, a rock that cannot move. 1,000 promises declare thy constancy of love. Now, this is where it's so important to get past the emotional image of love to recognizing that love in its purest essence is not something weak and fleeting and ephemeral and changeable. It's something stable. And that's why this picture of a rock, which of course is taken from particularly the Psalms, is so important for thinking about the love of God. Because you can stand upon a rock. Rocks, they don't shift. They can hold you up. And that's the nature of God's love. There's a constancy to it. And so, we can swim in it like it's the ocean. We can drink it up like it's a river. But we can also stand on it because it's a rock. Final stanza. Throughout the universe it reigns, unalterably sure. And while the truth of God remains, the goodness must endure. Now, what this final hymn is reminding us is that God's love, it's known through its truthfulness and it's known through its goodness. And I want you to picture these as the two wings. Think of an airplane, the two wings of love that, in a sense, give lift to our hearts. That on the one side, God's love, it's true, it's stable, it's faithful. You can stand on it, you can count on it. But it's also good, it's satisfying, it's sweet, it fills us with joy. And when you recognize that such is the love of God, that it's true, that it's good, as you contemplate what's going to happen is it's going to give lift to your soul. And you're going to start to soar and worship in ways that will bring great delight and joy to your heart. So let me just encourage you, take this hymn, use it as a workout, take some time, reflect. I know the language is difficult, it's poetry. I know some of it's a little bit old-fashioned. It's not how we speak today. But if you will take time to meditate on this hymn, it's going to bring great joy. But it's not just going to bring joy, it's going to bring stability to your heart. And it's going to prepare you to step out into a world knowing that a God of love is the God who guards your life and watches over you.